Another view of the bug out area here, and the vehicle. It went from bug out vehicle to bugged out vehicle. It's going to permanently stay here as a ranch rig, and part of it is that the thing wouldn't pass smog anymore, and in Portland, Oregon, there is a smog regulation. Idle on this is a little messed up, and I didn't want to pay to fix it, and I didn't want to pay to get it relicensed, so I just brought it up on a trip permit, and then it permanently stays here. And it's a much more cost-effective option compared to the side-by-side ATVs. I was looking at those today. They're wonderful rigs. They're not a smart way to spend the money unless you really have a lot of money to burn. About $15,000 for a good one that's off-road capable and has some utility to it, although you can get diesel, which is kind of good. This is just a little gas rig. Although they were made in diesel, they're kind of hard to get. But low buck, okay, low dollar on these things. No reason to go high dollar with it. You can get running older, late 80s, early 90s SUVs for not a lot of money. You know, 1,200 bucks. Depends on how much you want to put into it. I suggest just kind of going homemade, practice your fabrication skills, and go for it. Tires can be kind of expensive because no matter how old the rig is, tires are tires, and this one's about ready for new tires. But think about pre-staging vehicles that would be useful depending on the terrain. Now, this type of terrain, you'll see how the mud is, you see how the rocks are, you see how the jolts and bumps are. This kind of terrain really requires a real 4x4 that's capable of 4-low. There is a person up here who's tried to maneuver this stuff in an all-wheel drive. It's a all-wheel drive SUV type thing. It's on a unibody chassis, and it's not happening. Okay, so this is not Subaru country. Even though I like Subarus, I respect them and all that. Got to have a 4x4 with you know, real off-road 4-low capability, preferably with better tires than what I have on that one. And you know, vehicles like that aren't so great for the highway. Thing's a 4-cylinder, it's geared low, doesn't have a lot of speed to it, it's older, doesn't have a lot of power to it. We can nurse it along indefinitely, so it's basically in its retirement phase now, but it's a long and productive retirement. You can get those vehicles cheap, 1,200 bucks, Craigslist or local tow yard auctions. I would say I'm into about a dozen cans of green spray paint. Makes it look decent. And if I need to touch it up, I keep a couple of cans handy. And you can see how that little body panel got torn off. That's to be expected around this type of terrain. The roof rack there isn't really, it's not a roll bar, although it would help a little bit. It's made not to have sharp edges on the top, so if I carry something flat, I can carry larger items than the size of the roof rack and not worry about puncturing or irregular pressure on it. Fuel can gives me a lot of driving range out here in the mountains. You can see how the mountains are, and you know, it's good to go. So think about pre-staging vehicles. You want to think about 4-cylinder, V6 at the most. If you're going to pre-stage a V8, realize those things are going to use a lot of gas, because there's a lot of times you're just idling, you're four-wheeling. It's usually about the gears, not about the horsepower. And we're not trying to do, you know, the redneck final last words of, hey, y'all watch this and get crazy on the rocks. Okay, so the guys that want to do a romping, stomping Jeep rock crawler, you want to think utility, although you could sure have a lot of fun with your romping, stomping rock crawler out here. You can get into some money on those things just on the axle upgrades. So think about pre-staging vehicles where you camp or you do your outdoor activities, so that your vehicles that get you around, that you eat up miles with, are going to be something that gets really good fuel economy. Because in the coming hardship economy, your gas is going to be either more expensive or you're going to be less able to afford it. Now, there's a balancing act on that as far as having a vehicle which could circumvent, let's say, roadblocks or take back roads only. But with driver skill, I'm finding that your common front-wheel drive cars, you can go a lot of places in them. And my bug out situation is to get to pre-stage supplies, pre-stage resources, because I choose to live in a city because the city is where I can make an income. But what's out here stays out here more or less, and it's available to me even if I were just able to get here by hitchhiking with my bug out bag. And that's actually one of my goals. I want to be able to have enough supplies and clothes and food and fuel and resources so that if I just came here with a bug out bag, I'm good to go. But realize you can't live out of bug out bag full time. You got to have resources pre-staged. You got to be pre-staged at places where you can trust the people. Here's a lot of good little cabin building sites or campsites. You may choose to just put in, like let's say you have the vehicle up here. You may choose just to put in a small SUV and then keep a lot of supplies stuffed in it and your tents and stuff, and just know you've got a spot picked out. But you can do it if you've got a place where you can trust the people. And that's not to mention we got storage buildings, so that's not really a problem with that. But you want to be able to have your own little cottage or something that you can keep your own stuff in, so that it doesn't get mixed up with other people's stuff, and it's very clear what is yours and stays yours versus what you may have contributed. But for me, I'm actually contributing this truck. It's part of my contribution, so when people come up and see a rig like that, you're going to know that's one that I've contributed to the situation. So, and it's not painful for me to contribute it. I was either going to have to spend a couple thousand probably to get this thing really where I wanted to be, or well, maybe not quite $2,000, but it just